Welcome. Yes, core retail sales come in a little bit lower, but that's good news because now investors are going to start pricing in the idea of proper rate cuts. Yeah. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So, bit of an interesting story that's been unfolding with regards to tensions overseas with the Israel and the Iran war and all of that madness. And Trump has pretty much dismissed the idea of potential ceasefire. And that's not really good. But at the same time, America doesn't want to get involved. Well, quite frankly, if America does get involved, then it's probably going to cost them a little bit too much money to do so. And Trump really needs to start considering how to reduce the US deficit, which keeps on going up. Never mind. But today, Bitcoin. There's lots of good things happening with cryptocurrency, ladies and gentlemen. And in today's live, I'm just going to introduce you to what is being said about it and how the optimism might actually start coming into play with Bitcoin. And of course, you're looking at price now and you're thinking, hold on a second, what's going on, bro? Like, why is price dropping right now? Well, would you buy an investment of value at the highest price? No, you wouldn't. You'd wait for it to come down a little bit. I know I keep saying it, but it's the same thing every day in the marketplace. But what we're going to do is just going to break down what we can expect going into today. Of course, tomorrow is the FOMC. So if you are new passing through, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because tomorrow will be a very big live. And more importantly, we're going to know if the Fed is actually going to bring these rate cuts that traders, as we speak right now, are pricing in rate cuts in September. Now, the word disinflation is starting to come into play, of course, with the CPI coming in lower and, of course, inflation being sticky and slowing demand from the consumer. It's all gearing towards disinflation, which naturally does encourage assets to appreciate because the yields on the dollar, should I say, the interest rates on the bonds, they'll start to come down a bit, but the dollar will be getting weaker. So it's one of those sticky situations like inflation. So if we are heading into disinflation, it might be good for the short term, but not great for the long term. Now, with that being said, let's break down what we can expect today because, I mean, if the markets are going to move, they're going to move. But tomorrow, they've got every reason to move because when we have the FOMC, if we get any dovish sentiment or hawkish sentiment, I mean, if it's hawkish, then interest rates are going to stay high. But if it's dovish, well, ladies and gents, we're going to have ourselves a nice little party in the charts, ain't we? So let's get with the program, guys, and break it all down for you before the open. I am not late, man. I said, yo, 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 at the start of the chat. Like, if you go to the top, I was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was like the 11th comment in. I'm never late. I'm here. Anyways, let's get with the program, gang. Here we go. So, yeah, futures are pulling back a little bit. If we just go to the NASDAQ right now, you can see NASDAQ is pulling back quite a bit. And, of course, usually this happens before the market fully opens. This is what you call the Brinks box creation. Now, you can see that NASDAQ has swept yesterday's green vector candle region. It's now taken the Asian session low per se. And, of course, the news across the board is that Trump dismissing the idea of a ceasefire. In other words, letting them crack on and just get on with it. Okay, so that's usually why you'll end up seeing oil trying to make a little bit of a move. But we can see today it's kind of trading negative, flatlined. Not really doing too much, but that's usually the case when we go into big news announcements like the FOMC. Now, last night, pretty interesting. Bank of Japan has kept their interest rates and their logic on hold. So it doesn't look like they're going to be doing too much when it comes to the interest rates, which is a good thing because that's not going to be forcing investors in the carry trade to unwind from positions in dollar to then go back into the yen. Going over into the yen itself, I mean, NASDAQ, come on, make your move, man. And when we go into the yen, you can see that it's just going sideways, not really any activity. We've got some vectors up here that they could actually run towards maybe. Going over into the euro, you can see euro is also trading sideways. And whenever we've got FOMC, that's when you're going to see the Forex pairs holding out because they're going to dictate whether or not the interest rates are going to go down or we're going to keep them high for such a long time. Speaking of which, going into interest rates, let's just go and have a look at where we are in terms of bets. It's guaranteed that they are not going to do anything tomorrow. They're going to hold the rates, and that is the expectation going into June. Going into July, we've got the same story, same rates at 4.25, 4.5, but investors are betting that they're going to be cutting in September time, which would then take the bets to be between 4 and 4.25%. But the fact that we've still got that little reading right there of 34% of traders betting that it could stay at 4.25%, 4.5%, it could mean that there could be implications regarding inflation going up. Remember, if oil's prices are going up right now, that's going to be a problem for inflation. And that's going to, of course, stop the Fed from actually even cutting the rates in the future. Now, with that being said, going over into other things, this is what Trump said, okay, regarding the Eurozone. This is a problem, right? Because if the Eurozone's not coming with anything about a deal, then it's going to cause a little bit of a situation because investors are then caught in the idea of whether they should be going into US stocks by consuming dollars and putting them to work, or they're going to go into European stocks and go over there and stay over there because it's just too expensive to service dollars right now when you've got rates at 4.25, 4.5%. Now, this is what he went on to say. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stayed at G7, the chance of a Japan deal, but they're tough. So we know that there's going to still be a back and forth with regards to those guys. It says here they reiterate threat to send letters with what tariffs he'll charge. So this is what Trump's going to be doing. He's going to write to the Eurozone and say, if you don't do this, we're going to do this. The Euro will equally say, no problem. We make up 57% of the purchasing power of your dollar. So if you try and screw us, then we'll get everyone to start buying euros. That's exactly what China did. When the Trump tariff story was coming into play, China was encouraging investors to start stepping into European bonds. And guess what? Euro just keeps on moving up. Anyways, but he says here that pharma tariffs are also coming soon. So that's not going to be good for any pharmaceutical companies. And then he goes on about the Golden Dome project with Canada and extending the TikTok deadline. So that's really what Trump's been saying. Going into his roll call calendar, just understand what he's up to in this beautiful morning that we've got. So he is traveling a little bit. He's going to departs at the international airport for Joint Base Andrews, blah, 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 and all of that. So he's going to be doing an open press at, well, the times are different here. Hold on a second. Why are my times changed? Hold on. Bear with me. Why is that? Come on, it's 17th of June. Yeah, what's going on? I'm not seeing that. Well, anyway, he's probably going to go onto Truth Social, which he already has done today. Okay, so he's been throwing out all the comments about Israel and what have you. So we know that investors are going to be trying to price in that logic. Just breaking it all down for price action, ladies and gentlemen, over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's taking a bit of a tumble to the downside. Everyone's probably panicking. Bitcoin, what it gave yesterday, false move, week beginning, it's just come straight back down and given that those gains back. However, Bitcoin is stuck in this psychological range, okay, which is the first high and the first low that's formed at the start of a trading week. Look at the news that's coming out for crypto. Let's start it off with this. JP Morgan trying to come up with this stable coin. Great news. Ironically enough, of course, with Circle's IPO. Let's just quickly have a look at Circle IPO just to see where we are with that, because that for me, again, it's the biggest thing. Where are we? Circle, come on. Had this up this morning. Here we go. So Circle IPO, it's doing very well. Doing absolutely perfect. Look at that. $151. It's not really seeing any contraction. $34.07 billion for a market cap. It's doing actually really well for its IPO. It's not actually stopped. Look at it. And it's gapping up. And then we could potentially see another gap up going into the open. So this is institutional demand coming into play. We can see that. We don't have the data suggesting if there are any fund owners stepping in just yet because it hasn't been updated. But I'm assuming that we're going to start seeing a lot of fund owners stepping in and picking up this asset because it's the biggest competitor. And then you marry it up with the idea of JP Morgan coming out with a stable coin. Who do you think is going to be issuing that? Circle. Anyway, because they ain't going to be using Tether. They're going to be using USDC, aren't they? Now, check this out. Coinbase, Brian, he's been off and about. He's been going to UK to try and get things sorted out to alleviate some laws that the UK has put in regards to cryptocurrency. So maybe the UK is going to wake up and think, you know what, maybe we should jump and get involved in this story. So that's another bout of good news. Check this out. You've got Thailand abolishes taxes on Bitcoin. Happy days. So now people over in the Asian areas, they're going to start getting busy with Bitcoin. That is great news right there. Okay, even better. Trump's Truth Social wins SEC approval for $2.3 billion Bitcoin push. They're going to be issuing roughly around 85 million shares, but nothing has been put in play just yet. But that's going to be good news. It's another sailor job. Offer shares, we go get your money and go and buy ourselves some Bitcoin. Bitcoin's pricing principle should be making a move up. Now, with that being said, going into the ETF, all-time high. We got another balance update, 670,294. So that's not doing, it's doing great. Now, look at this. We've got nothing happening from BlackRock other than yesterday's purchases, but lately we haven't really seen that much interest coming into play. I mean, don't have any deposits into Coinbase wallet, so that's good news. And they're just maneuvering Bitcoin about, which is happy days. Looking at Bitcoin's price right now, you can see it's just stalling at these lows. But going over into the daily time frame, just to put it into perspective, we are trading below the 5 and 13 EMA, but the 5 and 13 EMA are flat. There's no momentum with Bitcoin right now. We don't have anything, okay? And that's good news for us because it can give us the idea that all we need is the dust to settle. All we need is Jerome tomorrow to say, we're more than likely going to be cutting in September. He says those words, the markets will price that pivot and it will shoot up and then everything will start correcting back down again. Remember, the NASDAQ is not too far away. What news we got just coming in? Okay, yeah. The NASDAQ is not too far away from these all-time highs. Look at that. That is disgusting. Look at that. Now, remember what I said. Smart money, dumb money. I need to see this come down a little bit more to hit an extreme. So let's just refresh this right now. Just to understand where we are with that, because the current reading is smart money is at 0.41. I would say if we get down to 0.35, then that for me would be a good position to be thinking, okay, maybe the markets are going to turn and come down. So once we see about 0.35 in the reading, that would then suggest the markets are going to go up, which should be enough weight for them to just break out to the upside and give us an all-time high. And you got to consider, man, we are getting closer and closer to the idea of getting the rate cuts, okay? But we have not had the impact of tariffs yet. And again, euro is still a problem because they're not coming through with anything. There's a purposeful stalling happening right now. And in my opinion, it's all to do with the interest rates because you've got to think about it. Right now, if the idea of investing in US dollars is not appealing for investors, I mean, look at it right here. You've got the 2-year yield right now coming in flat. It's pretty flat right now, 3.9%. 10-year yield coming in at 0.7 negative, and it's currently at 4.4%. 5-year coming in at 4% right there. And then, of course, you've got the 30-year at 4.9%, getting into that beautiful 5%. Whenever they hit 5% on a 30-year, then happy days. That's really good. But yesterday's bond auction wasn't really good for the NASDAQ, and they didn't like it, which explains why the NASDAQ yesterday did take a little bit of a tumble, but also came to the upside, but it didn't move. Quite frankly, the reaction on the bond market auction yesterday was pretty muted, even though it was a dismal auction, which tells you that investors are thinking about other things. Quickly going over into smaller time frames, just go over to gold for a second and have a look at where investor sentiment is at right now. So gold is currently trying to make a little bit of a move to the upside. Okay, but that is on the expectation that interest rates are going to get cut. Remember, gold goes up when interest rates are expected to be cut. All right, so that could be something that's happening right now. Of course, the market's not fully open just yet. So when it does, we're going to see investors' reaction to the idea of interest rates being cut because of the retail sales data that came in just not so long ago. All right, so that reading came in less. Look at that, minus 0.9%. And then core retail sales, the main reading for the Fed, is minus 0.3% as well. Okay. Now, with that being said, quickly going over into Bitcoin order flow to understand where we are. I'll be straight with you all. There's nothing. It's very light across the board. Usually you see this area here, that right there, all this pink stuff needs to be closer. Why? Because if it's closer, it would then suggest that there are people willing to sell right now, which naturally then fuels the move to the upside because people will be like, oh my God, Bitcoin's going up. And then they get their orders filled. You need some good news to come in. What more good news do you need right now with Bitcoin? You got great news with Bitcoin. You're trading so close to your all-time high. And the prospect of this Israel war is going to come to an end anyway. I mean, look at it. It's screaming consolidation. And quite frankly, if we don't get the rate cuts, Bitcoin could repeat something like it's done before. And that repeating behavior will be the same thing that it did over here, where it spent a long time in its consolidation period before it went to its all-time high again. And that's this range right here. All right. This is the longest period of time that Bitcoin has spent close to its all-time high. Very long time in its history, right? Starting to see the same thing here. We could get a spike and then down again. But as long as they keep it within this range. So spot holders, you're pretty much playing a couple of ranges right now. Okay. You're playing the 105.74. Everyone's like, oh, 95,000 Bitcoin. Listen, as long as it stays above the previous all-time highs range, you are good in buying Bitcoin, in my opinion. Okay? 1.6, no, $1.8 billion inflow into the ETF over the last few weeks. That's a lot of liquidity, ladies and gentlemen. And at some point, it's going to break. It's going to start making its move. I mean, look at the ETF. ETF at $61. I've got a projection that this is going to hit easily $150. What price does that put Bitcoin? In principle, you know, does put Bitcoin at a significant price. Maybe 300,000 Bitcoin. Maybe, who knows? I'm not trying to give you anything or try and sell you the idea of, ooh, Bitcoin to the moon and all that shit. No, I'm being realistic with things. Because what you got to consider is this. We don't know where we are with tariffs. All right. Tariffs in principle right now. Without tariffs, we're heading into disinflation. All right. Because consumer demand is slowing. All right. Core price indexes are starting to come down a bit. The dollar is depreciated. The yields are sort of coming down. And you got a little bit of a disinflation going off right there. All right. It's not been declared per se, but it's showing the attributes of. But then when tariffs come into play, wow, look at that. Everything like inflation goes up, oil climbing up. And they've increased the debt ceiling. But they're not talking about that. The deficit is still a problem. In my opinion, when you're stepping into an environment where there's changes in the interest rates, that's when you focus on Forex. Because that's where you're going to understand if investors are favoring stock or not. Because what you buy stock with, you buy it with dollars. If you're not favoring dollars, you're favoring euros. If you're not favoring Japanese yen and you're favoring dollars, you're not going to buy Japanese stocks. You're going to buy dollar stocks. But because all the money is cheap over there, especially in the Eurozone and in the Japanese zone, investors are going over there. And this is why investors, they don't even know what to do with the bond market. Just look at the 10-year bonds. All right. For the US government, this is piss poor behavior, guys. It's horrible for the bonds. All right. But what's going on is, and what you truly want to see, is you want to see the bonds market level out. You want it to be nice, consistent. Because when you see trends in the bond market, so when the bond market starts to go up after the stock market's been climbing, tells you that they favor low risk and they favor high risk. Okay. But when the stock market starts to pull back a little bit and the bonds market starts to go up a bit, tells you they're taking off risk from the stock market, paying themselves, putting it into the bond market just to take advantage of a couple of percentage gains on the yields. But what's been going on is you've seen this treacherous up and down. And when the bond market yields fluctuate so aggressively, it shows you that investors don't know what to do, which is where gold comes into play with things. Okay. Gold, in my opinion, right? Gold, in my opinion, is not done. It isn't done. We're waiting for a time bomb to go with no clock. That's the truth. We have no idea when it's going to go, but it's showing the signs of it. Silver is up 1.87% against gold. Okay, nearly 1.91 now. Okay, I've got a $50 story for this. $50 is my target for silver. Okay. Starting to run into silver right now. And you can see that bright as day. Look, USD CAD, that's going down because oil's going up. So if you're an oil trader, have both USD CAD and oil charts. And when you have them together, you'll understand. If the dollar dominance is going down, USD CAD is going down, oil's price going up. Happy days. That's good news for the Canadian dollar. Okay. Quickly going over into other assets as well. Have a look at the market open for NVIDIA. Look at that, man. It's running the marketplace. This stock is running the stock market. Here we go. 6 minutes into the open. We don't really have any movement per se on NVIDIA yet. There's no real gap downs, gap ups, just pretty flat across the board. You probably might expect that today. Tesla, a little bit of a gap down, nothing to be scared about. Amazon, just looking at the Magnificent Seven. Amazon's pulling back ever so slightly. Meta is flat again. Nothing active happening over there. Intel, pretty much flat. Google is gapping down at the open. Nasdaq is starting to try and make a little bit of a move to the upside. Nothing too fancy. Natural gas starting to climb up. Remember what we said about commodities? That's starting to make a move up. $3.80, 81 cents. Question. So, you know, BlackRock is a tier one market maker. If they acquire more Bitcoin, doesn't that mean there will be more stop hunts, manipulation, and volatility? Citadel is the main market maker, in my opinion, but don't get consumed on who's a market maker and how much money can a market maker make. All right? The goal of the market maker is to subsidize the idea of making life easier for the investor. If I want to go and buy Bitcoin, whether it's leverage trading or whatever, right? And I want to use that on the futures market, I will go and supply that. I will go and buy it. And Mr. BlackRock will be like, here you go, Tino. There's your 400 to 1x leverage. Happy days, off you go. All right. Thank you very much, BlackRock. Okay. You've got a bit of an agreement with whatever broker that I would use, and you get a cut because you've supplied me the liquidity so that when my long makes money, I'm taking your money. Okay. Now, given that it's a tier one market maker, without diving in too much to it, it's all about what is it that BlackRock really is trying to achieve in terms of market making. All right. And that's when we start talking about options. And that's when we start talking about whether they can transact at certain points. Because quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, market makers are they're not bothered about direction. Might sound counterintuitive. They're not bothered about direction. They're bothered about the liquidity. Where can they transact? To us, in our eyes, we think, oh, wow. Look at it like this. What's up here? People would say it's supply. Yeah? There's a supply up here, Tino. That's why Bitcoin's not going up, because no one's no one's buying. That is the biggest lie on earth. Because what does retail do? It buys when it rises. How can that be true? How can you say there is a supply? That means no one's interested in buying. Clearly not. Because when price rises, what do you see them doing? They're selling. There will always be a demand. That's the thing you've got to understand. There will always be a demand. In. I want. Always be a demand. But when the demand is then overwhelmed by the lack of, or should I say the prevention of participants giving positions or providing exposure for the retail trader to transact, that's when prices then start to pull back. Because what you've got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is this. You say to yourself, how is it the market maker is able to allow price to continue to keep on going so high, and let retail trader make money? Well, yeah, he does make it go high and high and high, but you've got to understand, he's not got one single position where he buys here, right? Where he's buying here and he's selling here. We don't know if this little journey right here is part of a massive position that they've been playing before. We will never know. All we can do, guys, without trying to get so messed up about whether the market is going to be going in one direction or the other, is to focus on the speed of the way price moves to a desired point. And when that point starts to slow down by the formation of candlesticks, where you see price not really going, then you can say, okay, well, after all that momentum in price going to the upside, what slowed it down? It's the supply. No, what it is, it's the intention to not continue. Because when you think about it, this move to the upside, market makers positioned himself to run shorts by attacking retail traders' short liquidations, because he's effectively selling into those, opening shorts, going long at the same time. Because why I said that market makers don't care about direction is they care about being delta neutral. That means minimize the risk. That's all they care about. That's why you've got strategies like gamma negative, where they'll be short in the futures, long, or go spot long on Bitcoin. Maybe that's what's going on with the ETF. Maybe they're going long on buying up the ETF on Bitcoin and shorting the futures, because the liquidity is all over the place. Why? Because futures dictates, in principle, futures dominates the spot market, because there's so much more money being transacted because leverage. Capiche? Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? What's your price target for silver gold? Silver is $50 an ounce, and gold for me is $4,200, potentially at the back end of this year for gold, I think. $4,200. Yo, NASDAQ. Any other questions, guys? How many of you are brand new to this live stream? How many of you? Come on, give me that flavor. And if you are, tradersreality.com. It's a nice place to be. And there's a nice PDF there. There's obviously more PDFs on the strategies of the hybrid system. And this breaks down various strategies that you can use on the hybrid system. You get that when you become a platinum member and you get access to a Discord. NASDAQ, what the hell are you doing? NASDAQ, give me 5 minutes, man. Hold on. What is going on NASDAQ? Here we go. All right, NASDAQ is making a very nice move to the upside. Should have a look at the order flow. Oh, yeah, they're transacting nice. Very nice. Very interesting. We've got a war. We've got all sorts happening. But this is just proof right now. They're pricing in the rate cuts. So there's no news that's come out right now to suggest anything. Anyone saying anything. There's nothing. The mood data has come out, sorry. And I'm not seeing any data. There is no data to suggest that there's anything coming out concerning. And Bitcoin? So far down there, man. It's so far. This is why you got to trade the NASDAQ as well. And go to BTCC. It's in the description. That's where you can trade the NASDAQ and crypto and stocks at the same time. Because you'll be missing out on these sort of moves. I mean, it is making a nice move. I can't lie. XRP. Ladies and gentlemen, look, there's a V-shaped reversal on XRP. Unbelievable. Anyone that's got XRP is wild. Solana, be careful with Solana, guys, because this ETF that's trying to get past and what have you, not heard that much on it yet, but just be very mindful with it. They are accumulating Solana, so once that ETF does come into play, that is going to be a wonderful thing for everyone. Anything else? Euro pulling back. Of course, that's okay. If Euro pulls back, volatility index is gapping up at the open. It's no good for us. We really need the NASDAQ to trade positive for the day, to be honest with you guys. That's what we need. You think NASDAQ can go up today while Bitcoin goes down? Listen, this is what I mean. Look at the classic behavior of NASDAQ. It goes up, it goes down. I mean, it all depends on how the market is going to react to any information that comes out later on today. They're reacting to the rate cut right now, or the expectation of rate cuts. Of course, the retail sales data as well. Stocks have just opened. This is why this is a very difficult time to trade when you want to put size down, because it's so volatile, all right? So just be very careful. Wait till the Brinks box is created to give you an understanding of where you are in the market. And the Brinks box is the first high and the first low that forms after the first hour of the market being open. So 3 p.m. UK time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. That's where you'll know where you stand with it. If it breaks the high of the Brinks box, happy days, and it's going to trade away from it. If it breaks the low of the Brinks box, happy days, trade away from it. It's pretty much open range breakout strategy. But of course, as simple as that sounds, the problem that you might get is they'll break the high and then they'll come down and break the low and then go back in the middle. So you've got to be careful with it. All right. Anyways, listen, I'll be tuning into you all tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And remember, of course, if you are new, hit the subscribe because tomorrow is the FOMC. All right. I'll be tuning into you all later on this evening. Take care of yourselves, gang. Mad love and respect. Peace. I didn't blink that time. Well, kind of did.